College football fans, buckle up, because when you look ahead to the future of the Big Ten and the road facing the Ohio State Buckeyes, one thing becomes crystal clear. Not all rivals are built the same anymore, and some are rising while others are drifting straight into irrelevance. So if you love real talk about the Buckeyes, make sure you smash that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly breakdowns, because Ohio State's biggest challenges in 2026 might not be who you think they are, and that's exactly what makes this conversation so fascinating. For decades, the matchup circled in red on every Ohio State calendar has been the game against the Michigan Wolverines, but college football changes fast, and momentum waits for nobody, and right now Michigan looks less like a juggernaut and more like a program trying to remember who it used to be. When national analysts start questioning stability, culture, and long-term direction, that's never a good sign, and the current perception around Michigan is that they're heading into an awkward transition phase rather than gearing up for sustained dominance. The coaching spotlight looms large, especially with Kyle Whittingham entering a situation that demands immediate results on one of the biggest stages in the sport, because the Big Ten is not a place where patience is unlimited, and it's certainly not a conference where brand names alone guarantee relevance anymore. Programs either adapt or get left behind, and right now Michigan feels like a team trying to keep its footing while the ground shifts underneath them. Meanwhile, Ohio State continues to operate like a machine built for pressure, expectations, and national contention, and that difference in trajectory matters when you project forward to 2026 and beyond. But here's where things get really interesting, because while Michigan's stock feels shaky, another program is quietly forcing its way into the conversation, and that program is the Indiana Hoosiers, a team that for years lived on the outskirts of Big Ten relevance but is now stacking talent in a way that demands attention. Indiana's recruiting profile looks completely different than it did just a few seasons ago, with legitimate high school classes and impactful transfer additions creating a roster that actually passes the eye test on paper. And when you pair that with a head coach like Curt Cignetti, who has already proven he can squeeze maximum production out of his players, you start to understand why analysts are circling Indiana as a potential problem rather than a guaranteed win. There are still questions, of course, especially around chemistry and leadership after roster turnover, but unlike Michigan, Indiana's uncertainty feels like upside rather than decay, and that distinction matters when you're projecting who Ohio State truly needs to take seriously. Now let's talk schedule, because Ohio State's 2026 slate is not for the faint of heart, and this is where contenders separate themselves from pretenders. Trips to face the Texas Longhorns in Austin, battles with the Oregon Ducks, road tests against the USC Trojans in Los Angeles, and physical matchups with the Iowa Hawkeyes are the kinds of games that define seasons and expose weaknesses, and if Ohio State navigates that stretch successfully, it will say far more about their championship credibility than any single rivalry game ever could. By the time the Buckeyes line up against Michigan and Indiana, the narrative may already be written, because elite teams handle business early and often, and Ohio State's standard has always been national titles, not moral victories or rivalry nostalgia. If Michigan continues trending the way it currently appears, the Buckeyes could be staring at a situation where the game feels more ceremonial than consequential, a rivalry carried by history rather than competitive balance, and that's not something Ohio State fans asked for, but it's something they'll absolutely exploit if given the chance. Some programs slide quietly into mediocrity, and others announce it loudly, and Michigan risks becoming the Big Ten version of the Auburn Tigers, a team with a massive brand that occasionally flashes but struggles to sustain elite success year after year. On the flip side, Indiana has the opportunity to prove that its recent rise isn't a fluke, and that makes them far more dangerous than a traditional rival running on fumes. For Ohio State, this creates a fascinating dynamic where one opponent demands respect and preparation, while the other may soon demand nothing more than execution and focus. The Buckeyes don't need to change who they are or how they operate, because their formula still works, but they do need to recognize where real threats come from, and in 2026, that threat may wear crimson rather than maize and blue. Ultimately, Ohio State controls its destiny, and if they take care of business against elite non-conference opponents and power through the Big Ten's toughest road environments, they'll reach a point where they can confidently stare down both Michigan and Indiana and remind everyone exactly who runs this conference. And that's why the coming seasons matter so much, because college football isn't just about tradition, it's about momentum, recruiting, coaching, and results, and right now, Ohio State is positioned to expose one rival's decline while shutting down another's hype before it gets out of hand. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more unapologetic Ohio State coverage, rival analysis, and Big Ten truth bombs, make sure you hit that subscribe button, Drop a like on the video, and let us know in the comments who you think Ohio State's biggest rival will really be in 2026, because one thing is for sure, the Buckeyes aren't laughing yet, but they might be very soon.